Okay, so you've probably heard the rumors, but we got to get the facts straight.
Yeah.
Cocaine, stimulant, or depressant?
Big question.
That's what we're diving into today
For sure.
with this article from Rolling Hills Recovery Center.
Okay.
It's called, Is Cocaine a Stimulant or a Depressant?
Straightforward.
Just came out November 25th, 2024. Written by Jeffrey Ondaria and medically reviewed by Dr. Carl Williams.
All right, sounds good.
So we're going to try to answer that question definitively.
Okay.
And really understand how cocaine impacts your brain and your body short and long term.
Yeah,
This is the kind of knowledge that can really protect you and the people you care about.
That's right. And it's interesting that there's even confusion about whether it's a stimulant or a depressant. I think that this misconception probably comes from the crash that people feel after that initial high.
Oh, interesting.
But when you look at how cocaine interacts with your brain, it kind of tells a different story.
So before we get into all of that, let's start with the basics.
Okay.
What exactly is cocaine?
So cocaine comes from the coca plant.
Okay.
And it's originally from South America. And you'll usually see it as this fine white powder.
Yeah.
But it also exists as crack cocaine, freebase cocaine, coca paste, even just the coca leaves themselves.
Wow. So all from the same plant.
All from the coca plant. And they all affect, or they all mess with your brain in very similar ways.
Gotcha.
But what's important to know here is that in the U.S., it's a Schedule II drug.
Schedule 2, that sounds serious.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean?
So it basically means that the government recognizes it has some medical use, but a high potential for abuse and serious health risks. So
kind of like a...
It's in this weird gray area where, you know, it's recognized as medically useful, but it can also be highly addictive, and that kind of fuels a lot of debate around how we handle drug policy.
Wow, so even being near this stuff is risky.
Yeah, you can face serious legal penalties, even for possession of small amounts.
And it's a global issue, right? I've read about cocaine use being a problem in Europe and North America.
Exactly. The demand in those places fuels this massive, often very dangerous network for making it and selling it.
Okay, so let's get to how cocaine actually works in the brain.
Okay.
I know it messes with dopamine, but I'm always hazy in the details.
So cocaine floods your brain with dopamine.
Okay.
And dopamine is a neurotransmitter, basically a chemical messenger that helps your brain cells communicate.
Gotcha.
And one of its key roles is in the reward pathway. So it's what makes you feel good when you do something pleasurable, like eating some good food or achieving a goal. But when you take cocaine, it's like hitting the reward button on overdrive.
Oh, wow.
Leading to these really intense feelings of euphoria, energy alertness.
So that explains the high.
Yeah.
But I also know there's that awful crash afterwards.
Right.
Is that because all the dopamine is gone?
It's more like your brain is scrambling to regain balance.
Okay.
So it tries to adapt to this sudden flood of dopamine.
Right.
And it leaves you feeling depleted and craving more cocaine to get back to that good feeling.
So the brain gets kind of addicted to this roller coaster of high and crash.
Exactly.
Wow.
And with continued use, it actually changes your brain's reward system. It becomes harder and harder to feel pleasure from normal things.
Oh, wow.
Because your brain is so used to that intense dopamine hit from cocaine.
Oh, that's scary.
And that's how addiction really takes hold.
Okay, so we've got this powerful substance that basically hijacks your brain's reward system.
Yeah.
But hold on. When you say cocaine hijacks the brain, what's actually happening at a cellular level? Can you break that down?
Sure. So what we're talking about is how cocaine disrupts the normal communication between your brain cells.
Okay.
So it blocks the reuptake of dopamine, meaning that dopamine lingers in the spaces between your brain cells.
Okay.
The synapses for much longer than it should.
Right.
And this overstimulation leads to the intense euphoria and all those other effects we associate with cocaine.
Right.
But it also throws off the delicate balance of your brain chemistry.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But how does that compare to how other stimulants affect dopamine? Because I know there are a lot of them out there.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So while many stimulants increase dopamine levels, they each do it in slightly different ways.
Okay.
So some, like amphetamines, actually force the release of dopamine, while others, like cocaine, block its reuptake. And this is one of the reasons why different stimulants have varying effects and addiction potentials.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So to settle this once and for all, is cocaine a stimulant or a depressant?
Cocaine is, without a doubt, a stimulant. It revs up the activity in your central nervous system.
So it revs up your central nervous system. And for those who don't know, that's your brain and spinal cord.
Right.
The command center for basically everything your body does. So it's the opposite of depressants, like opioids and benzodiazepines, which slow down the central nervous system.
Exactly.
So cocaine puts your brain and body into overdrive while depressants hit the brakes.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about cocaine's effects.
Okay.
It's known for working really fast, right?
Absolutely. Cocaine's effects can kick in within minutes.
Really?
Which is one of the things that makes it so dangerous.
Wow. Okay, so walk us through what happens in those first few minutes.
Right.
What are the immediate physical and mental changes someone might experience?
So you'll see physical changes like dilated pupils, elevated body temperature, rapid heart rate, and increased blood pressure. People often report this surge of confidence and alertness.
Really?
It can feel almost like a superpower.
So it's not just a mental high.
Right?
There are real physical changes happening too.
Absolutely.
And does this vary depending on how the cocaine is taken?
Yeah.
Like snorting versus smoking?
You're right. Okay. The high from snorting has a slightly slower onset but lasts longer than smoking.
Interesting.
Where the high is almost instantaneous but much shorter lived. And with higher doses, things can get even riskier. You might see anxiety, paranoia, even erratic or aggressive behavior.
So even a quick hit is playing with fire.
Yeah.
But the real trouble starts when this becomes a habit.
Exactly. That's when the long-term consequences of cocaine use really set in. And those consequences can be devastating.
Yeah, when we talk about the long-term impact of cocaine use, it's not just about addiction. We're talking about potential damage to like virtually every organ in your body.
That's a scary thought.
Yeah.
So what kind of damage are we talking about specifically? What are the biggest risks?
Well, physically, there's a risk of damage to your nasal passages from snorting.
Okay.
Heart problems are a big concern. You know, things like irregular heartbeat, increased risk of heart attack and stroke.
Wow.
If you're smoking it, you can have breathing problems.
Right. And then there are neurological issues. Headaches, seizures. We even see things like gastrointestinal problems and drastic weight loss.
It's a pretty terrifying list.
It is.
And it's not just physical, right? You said there are mental health risks too.
Absolutely. Long-term cocaine use can worsen existing mental health conditions and can even trigger new ones.
Wow.
So things like depression, anxiety, paranoia, in some cases, even psychosis.
So really playing a dangerous game with your entire well-being.
Yeah.
The longer you play, the worse it gets.
Exactly. And I think to like fully grasp the dangers here, we also need to understand the different forms cocaine takes and how it's used.
Right.
Remember earlier we talked about how there's a lot of different forms of cocaine powder, crack, freebase, and so on.
Right.
Well, the method of use also plays a role in the risks involved.
I'm guessing that the different forms have different levels of potency.
That's right. They vary in their purity and how they're taken.
Right.
But the bottom line is they all carry serious risks for addiction and health problems.
Wait, so let's talk about ways people use cocaine.
Okay.
Snorting is one. What are the others?
So you've got snorting.
Yeah.
But people also smoke crack and freebase cocaine.
Okay.
Because it produces a much faster, more intense high. Some people inject cocaine after dissolving it in water.
Right.
But this comes with an even higher risk of overdose and infections like HIV.
Yeah. That'd be good.
Occasionally you might hear of people taking it orally, but that's less common.
So no matter how you use it, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
But this makes me think about the social side of things.
Okay.
I know you mentioned earlier that cocaine is a Schedule II drug.
Right.
Meaning that the government recognizes it has some limited medical use.
You're right.
Okay.
So it can actually be used as a local anesthetic for some procedures, particularly those involving the nose, throat, or ears.
Oh, okay.
But because it is so addictive, it's really not a doctor's first choice.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And its use in medicine is strictly controlled.
It's interesting that something so dangerous can have even a limited medical application.
It really speaks to the complexity of these substances.
Right.
You know, even something with such a high potential for harm can have a beneficial use in the right context.
So outside of those very specific medical uses, it sounds like cocaine is just a dangerous and addictive substance with no real upside.
Yeah.
Which leads to the question, what can we do to prevent people from using it in the first place?
So prevention is really key here.
Okay.
And it takes a multifaceted approach. So we need to educate communities, empower people to make healthy choices,
Right.
and provide really strong support systems.
So it's not just about telling people don't do drugs.
Right.
We need to give them the tools and knowledge to make informed decisions.
Exactly.
So what are some concrete strategies that can help?
Well, first and foremost, just making the firm decision to never try cocaine.
Okay.
It sounds simple, but it's the most effective way to avoid those risks.
That makes sense.
And try to avoid situations where you might be tempted or pressured to use it.
Right.
And surrounding yourself with people who respect your choices is a big part of this.
It sounds like leading a healthy lifestyle is also important.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Exercise, good food, enough sleep.
Right.
These can do wonders for reducing stress and boosting self-esteem, which can make you less likely to be drawn to drugs in the first place.
And what about coping mechanisms?
Right.
Because people often turn to drugs to escape difficult emotions or situations.
That's a critical point.
Yeah.
So learning healthy coping skills,
Okay.
like journaling, meditation, or talking to a therapist can make a huge difference.
Right.
You know, these provide positive ways to manage challenges.
Yeah.
And of course, just understanding the dangers of cocaine, both in the short and long term, can be a powerful deterrent.
It's about arming yourself with knowledge.
Exactly.
So you can make informed choices.
Yeah, education is truly empowering.
So for someone who's already caught in the grip of addiction, what options are there?
Okay.
What does treatment look like?
Well, the good news is recovery is absolutely possible with the right support.
Okay, that's good.
So treatment usually involves medical care, counseling, and support groups. And these all kind of work together to address the physical, psychological, and social aspects of addiction.
Okay, so what are the main stages involved in treating addiction? What does that journey look like?
So the first stage is often pre-contemplation.
Okay.
This is where someone might not even realize they have a problem.
Right.
So the important thing here for loved ones is to be supportive,
Okay.
but to avoid judgment.
Gotcha.
And then comes contemplation,
Okay.
where they start to see the negative impact of their cocaine use.
Yeah.
And support from family and professionals is essential here.
So it's about gently guiding them towards acknowledging the problem.
Exactly.
Okay.
Then comes the preparation stage, where they start taking steps towards change, like reaching out to a treatment center.
Right.
And then this leads to the action stage where they engage in therapy.
Okay.
And this could be inpatient or outpatient with options like cognitive behavioral therapy, support groups like Cocaine Anonymous Family Therapy,
Wow.
and even things like mindfulness and yoga.
That's a lot of different approaches.
It is.
It sounds like treatment can be tailored to each person's individual needs.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then finally, there's the maintenance stage, which is all about staying sober and preventing relapse.
Okay.
This involves continuing therapy support groups, lifestyle changes,
Right.
managing stress, and maintaining those support systems.
That makes sense. It's not just about getting clean.
Right.
It's about building a life that supports sobriety long term.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm curious, what do you say to people who think that addiction is a sign of weakness or lack of willpower?
That's a really harmful misconception. Addiction is a complex medical condition,
Yeah.
not a character flaw. It's important to remember that anyone can develop an addiction,
Right.
and recovery is actually a testament to strength and resilience.
It's about compassion, not judgment.
Exactly.
We need to create a society that supports people struggling with addiction,
Yes,
not shames them.
absolutely.
But I do want to circle back to something you said earlier about the different forms of cocaine.
Okay.
We touched on them briefly,
Right.
but I think it's important to understand how they differ.
Okay.
For example, what's the difference between powder cocaine and crack cocaine?
So both come from the coca plant,
Okay.
but they're processed differently,
Okay.
resulting in these distinct forms and methods of use. So powder cocaine is the hydrochloride salt form of cocaine.
Gotcha.
It's usually snorted or dissolved in water and injected.
Okay.
Crack cocaine, on the other hand, is made by processing powder cocaine with baking soda or ammonia,
Oh, wow.
creating this rock-like substance that's typically smoked.
So the way they're processed affects how they're used and the effects that they have.
Yeah. Exactly.
Interesting.
So smoking crack cocaine actually delivers the drug to the brain much faster than snorting powder cocaine,
Gotcha.
producing a more intense but shorter-lived high. And this faster, more intense high makes crack cocaine particularly addictive
Right.
and dangerous.
Now, earlier we were talking about media and societal pressures.
Right.
And I want to dive a bit deeper into that.
Okay.
Because it feels really relevant to this discussion about prevention.
Okay.
I mean, we can't deny that movies, TV shows, music, even social media,
Yeah.
they often glamorize drug use.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It can seem cool or exciting, especially to younger people.
Right.
Yeah.
And that glamorization is a big problem.
Right.
Particularly because it downplays the very real risks we've been talking about.
Yeah.
So we really need to teach young people to be critical of what they see in the media
Right.
and to recognize how it can influence their perceptions.
So it's not just about avoiding situations where drugs are present. It's about equipping yourself with the knowledge and the skills
Exactly.
to resist the subtle messages that can normalize or even encourage drug use.
Exactly. It's about building media literacy
Right.
and critical thinking skills,
Yeah.
which are essential for navigating the complex world we live in.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about prevention at the individual level.
Right.
But what about prevention on a larger scale? What can be done at a community or societal level to address the root causes?
That's a crucial question.
Yeah.
So we need to create supportive environments that promote well-being and make drug use a less likely choice in the first place.
Okay.
So that means investing in comprehensive drug education programs in schools,
Right.
increasing access to mental health services,
Huh?
and addressing the social and economic factors that can contribute to drug use.
So it's a holistic approach that tackles the problem from all angles.
Yeah.
It's not just about telling people to say no to drugs.
Yeah.
It's about creating a world where they have the resources, the support, and the opportunities to thrive
Yes.
without turning to drugs in the first place.
Exactly. It's about building a healthier,
Yeah.
more resilient society where everyone has the chance to reach their full potential.
Now, before we move on to our final part,
Okay.
I want to briefly recap the key points we've covered
Right.
about the various forms of cocaine and prevention strategies,
Okay.
just to make sure everything is crystal clear.
Sounds good.
Okay, so we learned that while all forms of cocaine come from the coca plant,
Right.
they're processed differently, resulting in these distinct forms and methods of use, each with its own set of risks and dangers.
That's right.
Right. And we discussed how powder cocaine is typically snorted or injected,
Yeah.
while crack cocaine is smoked,
Right.
delivering the drug to the brain much faster
Uh-huh.
and producing a more intense but shorter-lived high.
Exactly.
And we talked about the importance of prevention
Right.
on both an individual and a societal level, highlighting strategies like
Yeah.
making that firm decision to never try cocaine,
Uh-huh.
building strong support systems,
Right.
leading a healthy lifestyle,
Yeah.
developing healthy coping mechanisms,
That's important.
and advocating for comprehensive drug education programs,
Yes.
increased access to mental health services,
Uh-huh.
and addressing the social and economic factors that contribute to drug use.
You got it.
It's about empowering individuals to make informed choices
Right.
and creating a supportive environment that fosters well-being and resilience,
Yeah.
making drug use a less likely choice in the first place.
Exactly.
It really is. It's about creating a world where people have the support and the resources they need to make healthy choices.
Yeah.
And I think that brings us to a really important point,
Okay.
which is the stigma surrounding addiction.
Hmm.
It feels like we as a society still have a long way to go in terms of understanding and compassion.
I agree. The stigma surrounding addiction, especially cocaine addiction, is a huge barrier to people actually getting help.
Yeah.
There's this judgment that people with addiction are weak or somehow brought it on themselves.
Right.
And that couldn't be further from the truth.
It's almost like they're being punished twice.
Right.
Once by the addiction itself,
Yeah,
and then again by the way society treats them.
exactly.
What can we do to change that?
Well, I think it starts with education.
Okay.
We need to change the conversation around addiction.
Okay.
We need to understand that it's a complex medical condition,
Right.
not a moral failing.
Mm.
It can happen to anyone.
So it's about shifting from blame and judgment to understanding and support.
Exactly.
It sounds like we need a real cultural shift in how we view addiction.
Yeah. And that shift needs to happen everywhere.
Wow.
In our families, our communities,
Right.
our healthcare systems, our media.
So it's not just about changing individual attitudes.
Right.
It's about changing the systems that perpetuate that stigma.
Exactly.
That feels like a really big challenge.
It is a big challenge, but it's a challenge worth tackling.
Yeah.
Because the consequences of that stigma are so damaging.
Right.
It prevents people from getting help. It isolates them from their loved ones, and it makes recovery that much harder.
So we need to create a culture where people feel safe to talk about their struggles,
Yeah.
to seek help without shame, and to receive the support they need to heal.
Exactly.
But how do we get there?
Yep.
What are some practical steps we can take?
Well, one thing we can all do is challenge the stereotypes and misconceptions we encounter.
Okay.
So speak up when you hear someone making judgments about people with addiction.
Right.
Share accurate information about addiction with your friends and family. Support organizations that are working to reduce stigma and promote recovery.
So it's about being an advocate for change.
Yeah.
Both in our personal lives and in the wider community.
Exactly.
And I guess that ties back to what we were saying earlier about prevention.
Right.
We need to address the root causes of addiction.
Yeah.
Not just the symptoms.
Absolutely. Prevention needs to happen on multiple levels. So we need to support research into the causes of addiction and the development of more effective treatments.
Right.
We need to invest in social programs that address poverty trauma.
Right.
Other factors that can increase the risk of addiction.
It sounds like a multifaceted approach is key here.
It is.
We need to tackle this problem from all angles if we want to truly make a difference.
I couldn't agree more. It's about creating a world where people have the resources, the support, and the opportunities to thrive without turning to substances like cocaine.
Well, this has been an incredibly eye-opening deep dive
Yes.
into the world of cocaine.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
From the science of how it affects the brain to the social and cultural factors that contribute to its use and the importance of prevention treatment and reducing stigma.
It's been a really comprehensive exploration.
Yeah.
And I hope our listeners have gained a better understanding of this complex issue.
I hope so too, because knowledge is power. And understanding is the first step towards creating a more compassionate and supportive world.
For sure.
For those affected by addiction.
Well said. And remember, recovery is possible. There is hope and there is help available.
Right.
If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction, please reach out.
Yeah.
Don't let stigma stand in the way of getting the help you need.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
We encourage you to continue learning, asking questions, and being part of the solution.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay compassionate.